Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your hurricane outlook and discussion. It's now Thursday, July 2nd, 2020, and this will be fairly short today, which is always good. That means there's not much happening, and so that's good too, because we know that as we get into August and September, there's going to be a lot happening. So let's enjoy the time when there's not much happening. Real quick, a little bit of July history for you. This tweet from Phil Klotzbach. You remember this? 15 years ago, the strongest July Atlantic hurricane on record, at least back to 1851, is Hurricane Emily in 2005. It's the only Category 5 Atlantic hurricane on record during July. Its maximum intensity was 160 miles per hour. That was a very, very busy season. You remember that. And this year, probably not going to end up like '05. It's a different type of season. But we can still have a very busy, hyperactive season, probably more in line with 2017 and maybe even 2010, something like that, where it really starts to bloom later in the year in the season. '05, everything was generally spread out, including this Category 5, one heck of a hurricane back 15 years ago, Hurricane Emily. Anything happening out there? Well, not really. Kind of surprising, but July globally is typically not a very busy month. Nevertheless, one area to watch here in the Eastern Pacific, but I will continue to sound the positive alarm bells. You don't hear that very often, that there's no threat at all to any of this land area here of Mexico. We'll put a big old check mark. You guys are good to go. Nothing to worry about as far as any impact to Mexico over the next several days. So with everything else going on, at least you don't have to worry about that. All right? And in fact, it's been real quiet in the North Pacific. Another tweet here from Phil Klotzbach that the North Pacific has only had one hurricane-strength tropical cyclone, and that was Typhoon Vong Fong, and that was a while back, right? And nothing since of even hurricane strength anywhere in the North Pacific, north of the equator. Right? The North Pacific and the Western North Pacific, nowhere. Only Vong Fong, and only 5 years. This is important. I thought this was interesting. See if you can figure out what's so interesting about it. Only 5 years since 1980 have had only one hurricane-strength tropical cyclone through July 2nd. Those years, 1995, busy year for the Atlantic. 1998, busy year for the Atlantic. 2006, not so much, but we had an El Nino coming on, a kind of weak one. 2016 was fairly busy for the Atlantic, and oh boy, 2017. So 4 out of these 5 years here, where we didn't have much activity, the Atlantic really kind of took over. And this is a different year than '06, so you can just take that out. And there you go. I mean, it's just more evidence. And when you look back and see the evidence from the past and try to put the pieces of the puzzle together, it helps to give you an idea of what's potentially to come. So anything out in the Atlantic right now? No, not really, but boy, that is a very impressive tropical wave. I got an email just before I started recording this from one of our patrons, Ernesto, pointing this out to me. I appreciate that. I love that interaction too. Different people will tag me on Twitter, Patreon, YouTube, etc. Lots of folks interacting. I'm glad you're paying attention. And you're right, Ernesto, that's a heck of a tropical wave. It even has that little bit of a tail to it, kind of like it's trying to curl up. We'll see. Let's see once it gets into the Atlantic, because there is also a lot of Saharan air around it, mainly to the north, and you can see that as evidenced by the lack of convection to the north here. Those are the Canary Islands. But we've heard about this, that the strong convectively coupled Kelvin wave making its way through the Atlantic basin, setting up as a standing wave of rising motion over Africa in the vicinity of the Indian Ocean. We should see much more in the way of these vigorous tropical waves coming out. And another thing to note, look how far north some of this convection is getting now. You know, we're not just seeing everything squashed way down south of 10 latitude. So the signs are, we're getting there. It's only July 2nd, right? So climatologically speaking, we wouldn't even really be looking out this far to the east. But there you go, something to watch. Elsewhere, nothing really going on. You can see an upper level low sitting here some troughiness off the east coast, little pieces of energy, these little meso scale convective vortex systems will come off. Just fancy ways of saying thunderstorm complexes. There's another one sitting here, but upper level winds are too strong across this area, generally blowing from southwest to northeast, preventing anything from getting going. So I wouldn't worry about too much. The models, a little rumble from here and there, a little chatter. Something might pop up, maybe, maybe not. But nothing imminent, that's for sure. Nothing that's going to spoil your July 4th plans. COVID-19 is already spoiling enough of that. We don't need hurricanes, so at least we don't have to worry about that. Be so lucky. A little bit of energy out here over the deep tropics. You can see that showing up in the vorticity signature, but nothing concentrated. There's a good little vortmax right there, a little blob. Again, I start to sound like Bob Ross, just a happy little blob coming off the southeast coast there. Nothing to worry about, though. Vorticity stretched out over thousands of miles. That's not going to cut it. You need it to concentrate. It's trying to here, and even here southwest of the Baja. But nothing coming together just yet. And so that's going to make for a pretty nice and quiet period coming up as we head into the July 4th holiday weekend. So I'll have an update tomorrow, and then I'm going to take a few days off, unless something pops up. I'll put an update out here and there, but there's no reason to see me every single day if there's not much going on, and you can focus on other things. One little quick piece of advice for you. Do me a favor with all this quietness, and we need it. Read up on tropical cyclones just a little bit. Will you? Will you do that for me? Go to the Hurricane Center's website, click on the awareness stuff, especially if you're new to an area. You just moved to a coastal area. Read up on hurricane hazards. Kind of think about your property. Am I vulnerable where I live? What would I be vulnerable to? Am I vulnerable to storm surge? Am I vulnerable to high winds? Both. Just think about it. Okay, don't worry. I'm not here to worry you. We get something like that satellite picture there that's in the title card coming. Yeah, you should be a little bit worried about that. But if you prepare ahead of time, luck favors the prepared, and you don't have to worry as much. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to mitigate the risk and mitigate your worrying. All right, there's enough whatever going on. So educate yourself. Use this time. Read a book. If you got one about hurricanes, history. But do it in a way that you say, okay, that's interesting. I'm gonna be a little bit more prepared this year, whatever that means, mentally, physically, financially, whatever it is. Do it, because I think you're gonna need it come August and September. I wish I could pinpoint exactly who, but we're not quite there yet. All right, so like I said, nice and short. Enjoy it, because eventually it's all going to be coming down, and you know what happens then. Anyway, I'm on Twitter at HurricaneTrack, YouTube at HurricaneTrack, of course, Facebook, Patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. We gained one new patron yesterday. Awesome. I appreciate everybody's involvement. And that's how you follow me on social media, the brand HurricaneTrack. So do it, and you'll be informed. Have a great rest of your Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening and watching and all that good stuff from whatever device you're doing it from. I appreciate your time. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.